So here's the thing, I love talking about things that I like, as I'm sure all of you do. Unless you're a soulless cave dweller, we've all got that one TV show or singer or movie franchise that we just obsess over constantly. I remember back in school, there was one TV show that would consume like 90% of my thoughts at any given moment. I talked about this show constantly, to the point where it kind of became synonymous with my name. This is weird seeing myself on camera. It's weird. And if one of my classes did like a random trivia quiz on the last day of term like they did sometimes, if this TV show came up in a question, eyes would start darting towards me like an instinctual reflex, as if I were the sole holder of this sacred knowledge of this show. A walking encyclopedia, and being a surefire ticket to victory for my group was a badge of honour, and one that I wore proudly. But as I've grown older, I've met and spoken to more people, and I've realised a lot of people are aware of this show's popularity, but are kind of hesitant to give it a go. And if you're someone who isn't really a sci-fi fan, and all the spaceships and robots and laser stuff isn't for you, then I kind of get it. It might not look that appealing on the surface. And so I stand before you today with a mission to break down those walls of doubt that is holding you back from what I consider one of the greatest TV shows of all time. And that TV show is Doctor Who. Because Doctor Who isn't just a sci-fi show. It's so much more than that. I think the best way for me to try and make this point is to tell you the story of Martha Jones. We meet Martha in episode 1 of series 3 of Doctor Who. She's a medical student in her early 20s, and she works for the Royal Hope Hospital in London as a junior doctor. She's a normal person. Not an alien or a robot killer machine. She's just a normal, ordinary woman trying to pass her exams. In series 3 episode 1, we're dropped in the middle of a random ordinary day in Martha's life. Prior to this episode, we have never met this character before. We see her walking towards the hospital building, and she's receiving a bunch of phone calls from like family members who are all trying to scramble to organise her brother's birthday party that night. And that normal day is interrupted when a random man in a long coat, shirt and tie steps in front of her and does this.
Like so. See?
And then he's gone. Martha doesn't know who this weirdo is who just did that, but she tries not to question it and continues with her day. Oh, and by the way, that weird man is the Doctor, the main protagonist of this show. And that's the thing, even though this show is sort of branded around and follows the Doctor and his world, it's not scared to shift the focus, because sometimes the story isn't about the Doctor, it's about the ordinary people who are affected by the Doctor and his world and all the creatures and crazy events that happen. It's about how these supernatural sci-fi things affect these ordinary people's lives. And just to know, for most of this video I'm going to use he, him pronouns for the Doctor, just because the current incarnation uses them. It's probably worth noting that the Doctor has been played by a woman before who used she, her pronouns in the role. The Doctor's quite fluid with that stuff, but I'll use he, him just because the Doctor I'm going to be talking about the most in this video uses those. So, anyway, back to Martha. She's approaching the door of the hospital when this tall figure in a leather jacket and black biker helmet barges into her, pushing her out of the way. And naturally, she's angry. She tells the biker to watch it as the tall figure turns to her, just says nothing, and keeps walking. And you know what? I wish that biker dude would try that shit with me. Because if he did, he'd be sorted right away. He'd be out cold. Once inside, we can see Martha go to fetch a lab coat out of her locker, but as she goes to close the locker, she gets a nasty electric shock. And we can tell she got an electric shock because of these stunning 2007 visual effects, which kinda look like something I would have put into my 3-minute Samsung Galaxy S3 camera filmed action films that I made when I was 10 years old. As the episode continues, we follow a group of medical students, including Martha, doing their rounds, checking on patients, being supervised by Mr. Stoker, who is the head of the hospital, I think. First, we see them meet Florence Finnegan, an old lady who Stoker diagnoses as being deficient in salt due to having only eaten salad for dinner every night for the past week. The next patient they check on is John Smith, but as you can see, John Smith isn't just any patient. He's actually the doctor using a fake name and posing as a patient suffering with abdominal pain. And obviously Martha remembers seeing him earlier being weird outside. She lets him know that it wasn't very smart to be running around outside that morning, but the doctor seems confused by that, assuring her that he's been right there in bed all morning. And you can see on his face the confusion looks genuine. He's not lying, he has been there in that bed all day. Later on we see Martha on the phone with her sister Tish, and Tish suggests the idea of them meeting during Martha's lunch break to discuss the party that evening. Martha isn't sure about the idea though, since it's raining quite heavily outside. But Tish tells her that it isn't raining where she is, just a few streets away. Tish then turns a corner and sees the hospital in the middle of its own, like isolated thunderstorm grey cloud thing. This is when both Martha's co-worker from inside the room and Martha's sister from on the phone both notice something very strange. They realise that the rain is going up instead of down. So that's probably something. Suddenly there's this violent earthquake-like tremor and the hospital starts shaking and a blindingly white light fills every single window, as if the world around the hospital has just exploded. And once the chaos has settled a bit, Martha and her co-worker peer outside the window once again, hoping to make sense of what just happened. But to their astonishment, they discover they are no longer on Earth. They're on the moon. We see shots of patients looking out the windows and screaming in terror. Remember, these aren't sci-fi characters. These aren't Jedis, they aren't galactic warriors, they're not time travelers, they're just ordinary human people. And naturally, they're terrified. Martha, like everyone else, is in a state of shock and disbelief. She can't comprehend how this could have happened. But amidst all the chaos and fear, Martha once again meets the doctor. And I'm gonna play that scene for you now.
If the air was gonna get sucked out, it would have happened straight away, but it didn't. So how come?
Very good point. Brilliant, in fact. What was your name?
Martha?
Martha, what have we got? Is there a balcony on this floor or a veranda?
By the patient's lounge, yeah.
How's it going out?
Okay.
We might die.
We might not.
Good. Come on. Not her. She'd hold us up.
Who is this man and why is he so calm right now? As the episode continues, Martha is kind of drawn to the doctor. She's curious and she wants explanations and answers. Now, I won't explain every single thing that happens in this episode because that's not the point of this video. So I'll summarize it a bit. Eventually the doctor and Martha discover that the hospital has been transported to the moon by a race of alien rhino creatures called the Judoon, who are essentially a ruthless intergalactic police force. We find out that the Judoon are searching for an alien fugitive. We find out that the Judoon are searching for an alien fugitive, which is also when Martha finds out that the doctor isn't human.
They're making a catalogue. That means they're after something non-human, which is very bad news for me.
Why? Oh, you're kidding me.
And here's the deal, the Judoon are gonna keep all these people trapped in this hospital on the moon until they find a fugitive. And if they believe that the hospital has been, knowingly harboring this fugitive, they threaten to kill everyone. So the doctor and Martha basically have to find the fugitive themselves before the Judoon do, so they can hand them in. And eventually they discover that the fugitive is Florence Finnegan, the old woman that the medical students had checked on before. The doctor realises that Florence is a type of blood-sucking alien creature called the Plasmavore. We find out this information in a pretty funny way. She's using a stroke. The two of them are then chased by the Plasmavore's guards, and once they get away to safety, Martha explains to the doctor what she saw Florence doing. The doctor then wonders why, during this situation with the Judoons, the Plasmavore would just stop to take a snack. That's when he finally works out. The Plasmavore can drink blood to shapeshift internally, basically disguising her own DNA and blood as that of her victim, I think. That's how it works. Don't quote me. As the pair leave the room they're in, the doctor bumps into a Judoon, who scans him and of course, he shows up as non-human. And that is all the evidence the Judoon need to decide that this hospital must have been hiding the doctor away, knowing he's non-human. They think he is the fugitive. The Judoon start marching through the halls declaring to kill the non-human. And then the doctor has an idea. But he asks Martha to stay where she is and try and slow the Judoon down so he can go and find the Plasmavore. But before he leaves, he kisses her. with little to no explanation, stating that it's gonna save everyone, and that it means nothing to him.
That was nothing.
And that's it right there. That face. The real heart of this show isn't aliens and spaceships on the moon, it's the Marthas. This woman's life has been changed forever. She's on the adventure of a lifetime, out of nowhere. Her whole understanding of science has changed, and this man shows up and takes her with him as he saves the day, and then kisses her without realising the emotional effect that could have. But why did he do it? Okay, story resolution speedrun. The Judoon reach Martha and scan her as a human, but she has traces of the Doctor on her lips due to the kiss. This causes them to stop and question her briefly, giving the Doctor some time to locate the Plasmavore. When he finds the Plasmavore, he pretends to be another frightened human and plays dumb, as the Plasmavore has one of her guards take hold of him and she starts to reveal her plan to him.
No, that's weird. You're talking like you're some sort of an alien.
Quite so.
No.
Oh, yes.
You're joshing me.
I am not.
Continuing to play dumb, he says the Judoon are increasing the scanners to setting 2, so the Plasmavore realises she must drink another human's blood to still appear human, and of course that silly little woman is going to assume the Doctor is another human patient, which he is not. So she goes to drink the Doctor's blood out of her little plastic straw. This shot is very disturbing, I don't like it. And as she drinks the Doctor's blood, the Judoon storm in. Martha tells the Judoon to scan the Plasmavore, knowing she drank the Doctor's non-human blood. They scan her, and she shows as not human. So, they execute her. And more stuff happens, but it's not important. You can go watch the episode if you want. And then the Judoon leave and they send the hospital back to Earth. The day is saved. We then cut to later that night at Martha's brother's birthday party that had been referenced earlier in the episode. And everything is going wrong. The family is arguing and Martha does not look happy at all. That's until she catches a glimpse of the Doctor standing by an alleyway, kinda looking like he's about to open up his coat to reveal various drugs. She leaves her family and walks to the Doctor, who asks if she wants to go on a trip in this lovely blue box, as a thank you for helping him. Naturally, she is hesitant because of life stuff. She's busy, she's a normal person. That's when the Doctor shows her that it travels in time. He goes inside his blue box and disappears, reappearing a few moments later, and he steps out of it with his tie off. He just went back to visit her earlier in the day to show her him taking his tie off, which is what we saw at the start. And that also explains why he didn't remember running outside when Martha questions him at the start of the episode. Full circle. Boom. So, in they go. Martha asks the Doctor if he has a crew on his ship. He explains that he doesn't and that he's alone, but he says that he has friends with him sometimes. He then mentions a friend he had been travelling with who isn't there anymore. Her name was Rose. Martha asks the Doctor where Rose is now, and this is how he responds.
Where is she now?
With her family. Happy. She's fine. Not that you're replacing her.
You never said I was.
Just one trip. To say thanks. You get one trip, then back home.
And that's when Martha hits him with the
You're the one that kissed me.
That was a genetic transfer.
And that there sets up an entire series with these two travelling together. It's a story about a girl who likes a guy who doesn't like her back because he's not over his ex yet. And it's layered in a bubble of sci-fi, action adventure, horror stuff to fill in the gaps and give these characters something to do. Over the next couple of series, Martha has an amazing character arc. And there are so many characters who have intricate, amazing stories like this all over those 13 series that have come out since the reboot of the show in 2005. Yeah, the show follows the Doctor in his spaceship, but the heart of the show is these ordinary people with ordinary lives who stumble into this madness and change forever. There's the retail worker who wants more in life, and her boyfriend who just wants her. There's the bride whose fiance isn't who she thinks he is. There's the little girl who waited for years for the madman in a blue box who stumbled into her life to come back for her. There's the time-travelling immortal pansexual known as Captain Jack Harkness, the woman with the mysterious professor and alien girlfriend. This isn't just about the sci-fi fantasy bubble, it's about the ordinary people who pass through it. Ordinary people, ordinary lives, ordinary romance stories, heartbreak, friendships and hardships. People who feel real, going on the adventure of a lifetime, and an immortal Doctor who is struggling with so much trauma and loss and just needs a friend sometimes. Which brings me on to my next topic. So just to clear this up, in case you didn't know how it works or were curious, the Doctor changes actor every few seasons. The show isn't rebooted every time, and it's not a different character. The Doctor is a part of an alien species called the Time Lords, and the Time Lords have the ability to regenerate every cell in their body if they're dying to save themselves. So if the Doctor is ever about to die, they regenerate. This process can change the Doctor's face, body, skin colour, and even personality to some extent. But at their core, the Doctor has the same experiences, same memories, and same beliefs. They're the exact same person, every time, one long continuous life, but with different faces throughout it. There's a lot more lore and context behind regeneration, but you'll pick that up as you go if you watch the show. And let me tell you, the Doctor has trauma. The 7th Doctor's final episode, titled Survival, aired on December 6, 1989, and after that episode aired, the show was cancelled. A little while after, there was a one-off attempt at a Doctor Who TV movie produced in the US, but I'm pretty sure it flopped. And it wasn't until 2005 when one of my personal heroes, Russell T Davies, brought the show back with a brand new Doctor unlike any we'd had before, and a fresh new take on the show. Now this first series from Davies is called Series 1. All Doctor Who from before this point is considered classic Doctor Who. They're sort of treated like two different separate shows, even though they're all part of one continuous canon. We never see the 8th Doctor become the 9th Doctor. So throughout this series we start picking up bits of context and information as to what happened between these two points of story from Classic Who. We don't know what happened between, we never saw it. So throughout this series we get bits of information here and there. And what we find out is that within this gap of the story, there was a great big time war, and the Doctor's people lost. His entire species back home have been wiped out. They're dead. He's the only one left. The last of the Time Lords. And so this new Doctor is dark. He isn't as bright and cheerful as the other men who played him back in the day. He doesn't wear fancy colourful suits. Instead, he wears a black leather jacket. Again, he might be an alien, and he might have a spaceship, but he's not a Jedi or galactic cyborg warrior. He's a man who has lost everything. He's lonely, he's heartbroken, and he just needs some friends. These incarnations of the Doctor throughout the new age of the show can't see the wonder of the universe anymore. They've been all over, they've seen so much and lost so much. They're fighting desperately to find purpose as everyone they love comes into their life and then inevitably leaves it. His friends are usually human, so they grow old whilst the Doctor keeps living on. Don't worry, it's not all depressing. Some of these characters that you'll get attached to do come back, even if it's just for a little bit. So you got that to look forward to. But yeah, this show isn't just sci-fi and spaceships. It's a show about people who feel real. They grip you and they make you root for them. The show follows an alien time traveller, but it feels so human. And that's not to say the sci-fi and horror parts aren't amazing. They are. The show asks questions like, what if stone statues were alive? What if the monsters in the closet that you were scared of as a child were real? What if Vincent van Gogh had to battle a terrifying monster? And that's just a few of the many amazing concepts that the show uses to glue these characters together. Now, I don't know if I've convinced you to want to give this show a go. This is my first time doing a video like this, so I might have done a terrible job, and I might make a better version of this video one day, but if I have convinced you to want to give the show a go, it can be quite intimidating to work out where to start. This show's been going for 60 years. And even since the reboot in 2005, there's been 13 full seasons. We're about to go into series 14. I haven't even watched a fraction of Classic Who. I started with the 2005 series, so I'm going to recommend you a few starting points you could go with. You can start with Series 1, Episode 1 of the rebooted series from 2005, which features the amazing 9th Doctor. However, visually it might be a bit outdated. If you want to start with something that feels a little bit more high budget and HD, you can start with Series 5 Episode 1, which is the 2010 series, and that features the start of the 11th Doctor's run, and it's rated to be quite a comfortable jumping on point. And another series I think is a good jumping on point is Series 10 from 2017. I think the way that series is written, it just feels like a very comfortable way to get into watching the show. It sort of reintroduces all the main elements. Some people might disagree, but those are just what I would consider the best points for jumping on if you want to start watching it. And if you like what you watch, you can always go back and watch the older ones. Thank you for watching this video. I've never done stuff like this before, but this channel, I'm starting to try and make more video essay commentary stuff. If there's any topics you want me to discuss, leave a comment, like, subscribe, all that. Thank you. I'll see you soon.